Under my new global tariffs, the dog existence tax now set at 500%. Furthermore, any nap interruptions will result in significant fines.
Ah, here we go again.
Today's video is going to be a fun one, with the Supreme Court striking down these Liberation Day tariffs from April 2nd of last year. We now get this new 15% tariff unilaterally across the board on everybody. And I want to go over the math, and I was worried I would never get the chance because I was like, this is such an irrelevant topic because it was over a year ago. Nobody's concerned about this. So I want to go over the math of how goofy it was last year when they were imposed and just show some of the ramifications and just how much nonsense all of this really was. In his famous reciprocal tariff board, it states that these tariffs are charged to the US and that they're accounting for currency manipulation and trade barriers. Along with that, the White House released this formula, trying in a sense to mystify everything, because they're using T sub I, X sub I, epsilon, even phi are in here. And hopefully you don't gloss over this, but I'm going to try to simplify and swap out these parts just to make it easier so us common folk can understand. Before we address this trade war deficit reciprocal tariff formula, I'm going to start by introducing a different formula, and then I'll tie it all back together to show that they're exactly the same formula. We'll begin by introducing this character, and we'll call her Suzie. Well, Suzie runs a lemonade stand, and in her little lemonade stand, she's selling to all her woodland critter friends, and she wants to figure out what her gross profit margin is. Well, there's actually a formula for that already, and we'll take the revenue she receives, we'll subtract out the cost of selling these cups of lemonade, and then we divide that all by, once again, the total revenue that she received. If we really want to get fancy with it, then we can just add a little subset I, and for this subset I, we'll say that it's just the interactions between the different creatures. So, in this case, it would be the bear, the rabbit, the dog, the fox. If you need an example, we can say that revenue, we know she's receiving 10 cents for each cup, and it cost her 5 cents for every lemonade cup that she makes. So we'll divide that out by the revenue, and we come out with a 50% gross profit margin. Our Suzie is doing well. Also, in this case, the I is still irrelevant because she's going to charge everybody the same price. So it doesn't really play a factor here. It's just fluff. Hopefully you can see there's no tricks up my sleeve here. Now, the question I'm going to throw out there is, why would somebody use this formula as the justification for why tariffs need to be imposed and adjusted? And like I said, I'm going to show you how they're isomorphically the exact same formula. So let's go back to our reciprocal tariff formula. In looking at our formula, we've got a couple extra variables here, which we'll eliminate very quickly. We'll start with looking at our X, and X simply means what's exiting America. And M is what's making its way into America. This whole subset I just means whatever country, so think US to Mexico, so Mexico would be the I in that case, and then Canada, China, so on and so forth. Well, then we've got the little epsilon and phi. So for epsilon, they say, let it represent the elasticity of imports with respect to import prices. And also, epsilon needs to always be less than 0. Literally, in the next paragraph, they say, epsilon is set at 4. So, okay, we'll just set it at 4, even though, by their own definition, it's supposed to be less than 0. Now for phi or phi, it's got to be greater than 0, and once again, it's supposed to represent the pass-through from tariffs to import prices. However, they just set it again at 0.25. So we've got 4 times 0.25, which just comes out to 1. So with it just being a constant of 1, we can actually just get rid of them. Now, hopefully at this point you can see how the formulas are exactly the same. If the ordering is messing with you, just multiply by a -1, and that's how you fix that ordering issue. Now, what's really concerning is let's recall what was stated when these tariffs were applied. We said that these were tariffs being charged to the US, we said there was currency manipulation, and that there was trade barriers. In the formula I've shown you now, is there any of that calculated in there? Or is it just what's leaving and what's coming in? Now, in their defense, they did say that computing the trade deficit effects and all the policies between each country is complex, if not impossible. However, I don't think they even tried. They just kinda took a chainsaw to the world and said, good luck, everybody. Time now to look at some examples and the results of what these tariffs did. Let's begin with the China case.
China.
So for imports, we're looking at 438 billion roughly. And for what's leaving the country, we've got about 143 billion. Let's subtract these two out, we come out with a deficit of 295 billion. You do the rest of the calculation here and you get roughly 67%, which is exactly what he had on his board. Now let's look at what some of the biggest imports and exports are. So what they are sending to us are smartphones, laptops, batteries, and toys. And what's coming from the US to them is soybeans, semiconductors, petroleum, and natural gas. And in particular, I do want to take a look at the soybeans and see what occurred. In this chart, we've got soybean sales to China, with each bar representing a 1 week instance. And as you can see, due to these escalating trade negotiations, it was declining relatively rapidly. And our great negotiator, he actually came out with a solution where China will be purchasing this bar right here. And they'll be purchasing that bar from the US once a month, effectively torpedoing this entire sector. So much so that at the end of last year, they had already come up with a $12 billion bailout for these farmers that they had affected.
Well, I can take over talking about Brazil. Wait, why am I dressed for carnival? Oh, anyway, we send oil, coffee, iron, and steel to the States. And the States send Brazil fuel, aircraft parts, and fertilizers. Just wait, let me change my outfit real quick. Oh, the numbers went by on the screen and the final percentage is green. That's good, right?
Actually, yes, it's supposed to be good according to what our formula looks for, but America is gonna need you to pay a little bit more.
So you're calling it loyal customers and asking for more money? That's so sad.
Hi, Jerry. Michael Scott. Well, this is slightly embarrassing. I'm going to have to ask you to pay me a little bit more money. Yeah, we did. We got the check, but we're just going to need a much, much bigger check.
How much more?
50% more?
O quê? Que absurdo! Isso é assalto à mão armada. Well, it's your own fault. When we just start trading with China more and the US less. Enjoy paying more for coffee, you vagabundos.
Since these sweeping tariffs on these 180 plus countries was shot down by the Supreme Court, now would be a good time with Trump's poll numbers being so underwater that he take a step back and reassess on how well this formula for reducing this so-called trade deficit, even though it was never accounting for that, actually did. Because while the top players may have changed between 2024 and 2025, the deficit continued to bloat out to 1.24 trillion this year. Therefore, if this formula is to be held accountable for it, it made the problem 25% worse, as it were.
We're gonna win so much, You may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
Let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like if you made it this far. I doubt the 15% will do anything to reduce this trade deficit. But honestly, I think at this point, he's just throwing anything out there to distract from the Epstein files. Hell, he might even start a new war. But at the very least, have you seen the Dow recently?
I want to be a good boy. I have very effectively utilized tariffs over the past year to make America great again. Our stock market has just recently broken 50,000 on the Dow.
If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.